Coming up next on The Jeff Crilley Show, we'll be talking to an international consultant on the importance of strategic planning. That's just ahead.
Many are predicting that the worst is yet to come, which is unfortunate, said one person here. Until now, they've enjoyed the reputation of being the nation's icebox.
Watched a burglar in his home this morning by webcam.
As a journalist of over 25 years, stories are what make my world turn.
Reporting live from the Dallas newsroom tonight, Jeff Crilley, Fox 4 News.
But in 2008, I took the jump from my familiar life and started a PR firm from my home.
We're talking about anyone with a camcorder like the one I'm using becomes a television network.
We started slowly growing the company, and we now have over 100 clients, and we've branched into the world of live digital broadcasting. I now own 8 different TV studios and have a huge team, and the stories that I now get to share are sometimes the most important of my life. Life has a funny way of coming around full circle. This is The Jeff Crilley Show.
Well, I have to confess, as a former news reporter, I've never been good at strategic planning. Planning, what is that? You show up at 2 at the TV station and you're live at 5 at the airport talking about flight delays. I never had a chance to really plan much. I just reacted. But now, as the CEO of a growing public relations and podcast company, I know the value of strategic planning. You absolutely have to have a plan. To talk about that today, Matthew Jones. He's the owner and Chief Navigation Officer of Directions Consulting Group. Thanks for coming on the show.
Oh, thanks so much, Jeff. Appreciate you having me today.
Well, I want to talk a little bit about your background before we get into some advice for company owners. Tell us more about, you at one point you worked for the state of Louisiana, which I think is a cool job.
That's correct. Well, thank you. I guess I spent about 2 decades at the CFO, COO level. Initially, that was in Louisiana. I worked for the state for about 12 years. My last role there was as the Undersecretary for the Department of Culture, Recreation, and Tourism. Fantastic job. You're over the state parks, the state libraries, the state museum, historic preservation, arts program, film commission. I mean, it was all the good stuff that's going on in a state, but it also included the state's tourism program. And that's how I started working with destinations, predominantly New Orleans in Louisiana, but looking at tourism and understanding the impact that it has on a local economy, which was tremendous. Well, that led to me coming over to Dallas, where I went to work for Visit Dallas. And I spent about 14 years as the CFO and COO of that organization.
And that's a really big job. We've got a little video that we're going to roll while we're talking about that. Tell us more about Visit Dallas and your role there and how you helped promote Dallas.
Well, again, it's just an incredible job when you talk about tourism, what that does for the local economy, the way that those organizations really work kind of behind the scenes to make things happen. Because every city in America basically has a destination marketing organization, but they really don't do anything to promote themselves. It's all about making sure that the destination is getting promoted. So love that role there. We saw great success. We were able to grow the budget. We were able to grow performance. We saw Dallas definitely increase in the ranks in both a domestic and international setting. But that really led to me being able to transfer that experience and that expertise. And 2.5 years ago, we started the Directions Consulting Group and was able to take that experience from my previous lives and previous roles and use that to help others as they're trying to move their organizations forward.
Okay, let's talk a little about strategic planning, because I do think a lot of people kind of wing it. And during COVID, it doesn't matter what your strategic plan was, it kind of went out the window when suddenly everybody's working from home. Talk about the importance of strategic planning.
Absolutely. You know, and maybe because of my background in hospitality and travel, I use an analogy that is also along those lines. And you kind of alluded to it during your introduction when you were talking about that most people really don't plan that much. It's just, we don't have time for a strategic plan. We're too busy doing our job. Well, I kind of look at it like travel. There's no way that you would roll the dice one morning to decide where you're going to go on a family vacation and then jump in whatever vehicle happened to be closest to the door. Drive until you ran out of gas and then hopefully enjoy wherever it is that you ended up. Why do I say that? It's because you actually do some planning. You're going to do some research before you travel. You're going to find out, where do we actually want to go? And that starts by deciding, where am I now? You have to know exactly where you are before you can really plan where you're going to go and how you're going to get there. We all reach in our pocket on a daily basis, probably on an hourly basis, and look at our phones. But when we put that address in the map on the phone, we don't just put it in there and then set the phone down on the seat next to us and never look at it again. You look at it every step of the way. When you're on a long trip, you're always looking for, when do I make that next turn? Where am I going? Am I on track? Am I ahead of time? Am I behind schedule? Do I need to make adjustments? Is there a traffic accident ahead of me? Is there something that's going to cause me to make a detour? The exact same thing is true for strategic planning. You have to really define where your organization is and exactly where you want to be before you can decide the best path to get there. But even once you develop that path, do you have the right people? Do you have the right resources? There's a lot of questions you have to check along the way.
Give us a success story so far.
Sure. I love the idea of working with organizations on an ongoing basis. It's fun to create a strategic plan, and that can be done in a relatively short period of time. And some organizations just want to take that plan, the booklet that you prepare and the steps and the how-to guide, and they want to run with it. Other organizations really want to see you help them continue that process and continue that journey. So I've enjoyed working with organizations that see the benefit in that and that allow me to be a continued resource to their executive team, to be somebody that they can gut check their own decisions, or if they're trying to run an example by me that they haven't experienced, but they hope that because of my background that I've seen how other people address it or have seen a solution in another place.
And you've had success working internationally as well.
I have. The international has been really interesting, and obviously I said at the beginning that, or you did, that I worked in state government, so I'm very familiar with bureaucracy. But I have to say that working overseas and internationally brings up a whole new level that I heretofore was not aware of. But in that process, worked overseas. This actually happened to be in Saudi Arabia, where they were looking to grow a destination. They were creating an event, they were building hotels, creating a destination city for that market that previously didn't exist. Well, they were a little bit behind schedule on getting the hotel accommodations ready for their VIP guests. So we were able to come up with a plan that said, well, what if you built a park? And what if you had a centralized house where all the amenities were provided? But instead of having hotel rooms, we used 30-foot Airstream trailers as the accommodations for your VIPs. A very kitschy feel, very unique type of environment. They built permanent decks around these structures. They were very successfully used for that event and even became a permanent asset that they now use for other types of accommodations. And of course, that brought in not only the solution for how do you build this? What does this look like? What's the best solution in this scenario? But then getting into the international logistics and looking to work with a domestic manufacturer to try to speed up production, to work with international shippers to see how do you get this to a port? Which port? How do you get it on a ship? Where is that going to go? How do you get it unloaded? How do you deal with customs? It was an incredibly exciting project that probably should have taken about 9 months, and we were able to do it in just about 3 months.
That's amazing. We've only got about 2 minutes left. How does a CEO know when they need to bring in somebody like you?
I think the biggest solution is recognizing when you need that help. And CEOs are smart individuals. That's why they're running the organization to begin with. But if you decide that you don't have the resources in-house, that you either don't have the time, that you don't have the experience or you don't have the expertise, then bring in somebody who can help push that project along. And that would be me.
Outstanding. Matthew Jones, we're going to end with your website, which is directionscg.com, Directions Consulting Group. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks again so much. I appreciate you having me today.
You bet. And that's it for now. We'll see you next time.